For more, we're going to cross to Alex Melikishvili, Principal Research Analyst here in Paris for business consultants IHS Markit. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24. First of all, your reaction to what you just heard in that live update.
Thank you very much, Francois, for having me, and Happy New Year. Yes, this year started in a very unusual manner, and your reporters did a very good job, kind of painting a comprehensive picture of a very fluid situation as it is continuing to unfold in Kazakhstan. I would caution against making rash judgments about sort of the end of the de facto doomvirate that has been in place in Kazakhstan pretty much since the formal stepping down of President Nazarbayev in spring of 2019. It's not quite clear. The latest, this particular part of the report is not entirely clear what is happening because in President Tokayev's latest nationwide address, he did not really mention Nazarbayev at all. He just simply said that he's assuming the power of the extremely powerful decision-making body, Security Council, the chairmanship of the Security Council. But it's not quite clear whether this is a permanent arrangement or a temporary arrangement.
Or if I may, not an arrangement at all, but Tokayev forcing out Nazarbayev.
Correct. And there will be signs, telltale signs that we will see going forward. For now, the focus of the government is on bringing back the normalcy. And the most basic sort of litmus test of it will be the success with which the curfew will be enforced, for instance, in Almaty. There was a mention of the protesters taking over the airport. And I have to refer to you again to the latest speech by President Tokayev. Unfortunately, I detected sort of notes of a completely different tone from a previous speech that he made. I fear that the government is preparing a forceful response because I have to remind you that right now it's already 11 o'clock. That's the beginning of the curfew in Almaty. That's the beginning of the curfew also in the capital Nur Sultan, but also in Mangistau region, in the Almaty region. So this will be the ultimate test, whether the government can control the situation on the ground. Of course, it is surprising. To some extent, it is surprising, but it also shows you how brittle authoritarian systems can be. Just kind of to go back to the origins of this. This started on 2nd of January, and initially this was economically motivated protest.
Yeah, let's on that point call up a map just to show our viewers. Kazakhstan, one of the biggest countries geographically on Earth. It's a wide country that goes all the way from the tip of the border with Mongolia all the way nearly into Europe. And we look at the West, which is the oil region, and there have been a lot of the protests there. If we understand correctly, it started because of a price hike in fuel, in particular, liquefied natural gas. Tell us, Alex, why that's important.
Yeah, basically liquefied, just like actually your reporter mentioned, liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, is a very popular alternative to actual petroleum for many folks in Kazakhstan. And in the western part of the country, starting from 1st of January, there was this shift to the online trading, which increased the price of the LPG, actually making it double. So the initial wave of protest was actually related to economic grievances, but it quickly spread to other regions. And as it went further, the nature or the character of the demands changed very rapidly to include political demands, including the call by the demonstrators, by the protesters, for the removal of ex-President Nazarbayev from the political scene. That's an important factor. Why? Because Nazarbayev, despite formally stepping down, retained decisive influence over government, from the background and from his institutional position up until today, that is, of being a lifelong chairman of the Security Council. And that precisely is, the fact that it spread so quickly also reflects the popular dissatisfaction with the government. Which has to do with the sort of failed promises on the part of President Tokayev. You see, when Nazarbayev stepped down in spring of 2019, a lot of Kazakhs had a hope that this will result in political liberalizations, reforms. And in fact, President Tokayev announced this doctrine of the so-called listening state. However, this didn't really materialize in anything tangible in terms of democratization. And as we now see, initial economically motivated protests quickly spread and turned into a sustained unrest.
Sustained unrest. And let me ask you about this, Alex Melikishvili, because as was mentioned by our correspondent, Kazakhstan, a country with many ethnic groups, there's pent-up resentment against the government, but there are also, 1/5 of the country which are ethnic Russians. And I just want to read to you a statement out of Moscow. The Russian President Vladimir Putin, who has discussed the unrest, it says, in a three-way conversation with the Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and Belarus's President Alexander Lukashenko. It doesn't say more. How will Moscow react?
Well, generally speaking, Francois, Russian government is, generally speaking, holds suspicions towards any change in political status quo that comes from the street in its near abroad. One example of this can be the initial attitude of the Russian government towards, the reformist opposition leader Nikol Pashinyan, who came to power on a wave of unprecedented nationwide peaceful civil disobedience campaign in Armenia in 2018, I have to remind you. So, Russian government was had a lot of apprehensions towards him initially. And, mind you, Armenia is far less important for Russia than Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a strategic ally. It's the linchpin of Russian influence in Central Asia. It is the second most important member of Collective Security Treaty Organization, the Russian-led military alliance, as well as second most important member of the Eurasian Economic Union, which is the trade bloc that is led by Russia. So there is a lot at stake here for Russia. Therefore, for them, this is definitely not good news because they are not welcoming a change that comes from the street.
And one final question, just again, to recap very briefly, it is now nighttime in Kazakhstan. A curfew is in place. The next hours, will they be crucial?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think overnight there will be contours of basically the security situation in the days to come. And the sort of enforcement of the curfew is the telltale sign. If the government has the capacity to enforce the curfew, this will mean that the likelihood that these protests will last is slim to none. And I have to also add one more thing, if I may. I mean, the character of the protests is important in a sense that they are completely uncoordinated, grassroots, and disorganized, and there is no discernible leadership, which makes the likelihood that they will be sustained further, limited. Let's put it this way.
At least for now. Many thanks, Alex Melikishvili, Principal Research Analyst at IHS Markit. Thank you for speaking with us.